Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Well, hello, it's Stan in Gainesville, and today we're going to discuss remote follow spots, controlling your addressable LEDs, how to have a good rock and roll concert, and also tax day.
And this is Ellen coming to you from the beautiful tropical island of St. Bart's. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk. And we are the Lumen Brothers and Sister. Welcome, everyone, to episode 417. Wow. Congratulations, guys. 417. Amazing.
How are things down just left of the Bermuda Triangle?
Well, just left of the Bermuda Triangle, it's starting to get very hot. It's Lent. And all the locals believe that Lent is a dry, hot season. And after Lent, it can start to rain again. And then it leads into hurricane season. So, you're always, you have no seasons down here except those kind of seasons.
It's funny because that's what the Pope said. He said, when I think of Lent, I think of a dry, hot season. So, what can I say?
We don't have that in my tribe.
You celebrate Lent anyhow?
Sure.
You should celebrate every holiday. Every holiday.
Holy days are good.
I believe this is International Shoe Week. We should
I think
celebrate
every
that.
day is a holy day, actually.
Well, I was looking at the calendar, and there are all kinds of things going on this spring and summer that we might want to take advantage of, and they are conferences. NAB, April 5th through the 9th in Las Vegas. Pro Light and Sound, April 8th through the 11th, all the way in Frankfurt, Germany, if you want to travel a bit. Light Fair is in Las Vegas, May 4th through the 8th. Show Light, our sister is going to Show Light. That
yes,
will be
I am.
May 19th through the 22nd. She'll be having wine and good cheese in France. And Plaza, September 11th through the 14th in Leeds in the UK. So a lot to get done if you want to go. So Ellen, you said you were going to Show Light?
Well, yes, but don't forget LDI, December 3 to 9, also in Las Vegas, to round out the season.
I'm not going to take the words out of your mouth.
So don't forget LDI, December 3 to 9, Las Vegas. Yes, I am going to Show Light. And, it's really funny how certain events stand out in your mind. And I have to say that the two Show Lights that I've been to before, one in Edinburgh and the last one in Florence in 2017, really stand out as exceptional events for many reasons. One of which is that it's just a great way to see a lot of people. I don't have to run the conference, so it gives me a lot more free time to sort of, hobnob and talk to designers. And I was sort of struck the last time in Florence that it's really that one was primarily UK designers who sort of picked themselves up and moved to some beautiful European city and wine and dine themselves for a couple of days and celebrate lighting in all of its forms. This year, I think they've done a better job. There's a lot more American speakers and designers and some Europeans. And, it is all in English. I don't know what the French designers that they have are going to speak in English or what, but it's really, it's an interesting thing. And one of the things that makes it really interesting are the networking opportunities. And every time we send out a survey about LDI, everybody asks for more networking, more networking, more networking. And they mean human kind of, let's get together with your peers and network sort of thing. And one of the things at Show Light is that they always do it where there's a major company. In Edinburgh, it was Strand. In between, I believe it was in Hungary, and it was Robé, and it was Clay Packy in Florence, and this time it's Robert Juliat in France. And one of the things that sponsor has to do is a dinner for about 300 people. And the one in Edinburgh was at a beautiful place called Hoopton House, the huge, beautiful, old, historic mansion. And it was incredible. They had haggis, and they had bagpipes, and it was an unforgettable evening. And the one in Florence was at a sort of private chateau, which was really also quite exceptional. So I'm waiting to see what we're going to be doing in Dijon, and hopefully it will be another memorable experience. And anybody who hasn't heard, last week's show features Jim Tetlow, who is the sort of chair of Show Light at the moment and has done a great job lining up this year's speakers.
I'm trying to think how you can improve LDI, but I don't know if there's a way to improve it. I think you have reached perfection. We don't need no stinking dinner. We need an LDI tattoo artist or something.
It's funny you say that, but we are having a dinner this year because last year we launched something called Dining with Dinosaurs.
Ooh.
And it was a lunch. And it's all the sort of dinosaurs of the concert touring industry. And this year we're launching a concert touring summit, as it were, all day Saturday, the day before the show floor opens, that will culminate with the Dining with Dinosaurs as a sort of drinks and light dinner and dinosaurs in the evening, as a way for, all those great people. And it's like we're going to tie it into our young career professionals so that they all get to hear the fabulous stories of the people who were out there, like in the 80s when Genesis did that first tour with the first Verilight. And I mean, those stories are incredible. And it would be lovely to find a way to record all those. I should get some kid at each table with an iPhone just recording the stories,
That sounds
Or
great.
we should have every dinosaur on Light Talk before it's too late.
We could have the Dinosaurs series. That could be
The
fun.
dinosaur series. Well, it's really interesting people. It's, Jeff Rabbits, who's sort of a junior dinosaur, and Cosmo Wilson, and, Bob Gordon. I don't know if you've ever had Bob Gordon on the show, but what a
we
history
haven't.
in the
That's
lighting
true.
industry
He's a
he
great
has.
guy.
He is a great guy, and what a history, It was really interesting. Peter Morse, an incredible group of people. Marcel Fairbairn, so maybe we could have the dinosaurs.
I like the idea of Bobby Gordon being on. I've known him since I was, 18 years old.
I once wrote an article calling him the happiest hog farmer in America when he was marketing whole hogs. And then, of course, he left and went to the Grand MA and made that the
ACT.
most successful, ACT, and made that the most successful console. So he's a real success story in this business.
Isn't he from the Bronx?
I don't know where he's from originally. I think he lives in Malibu now.
I knew him when he was living in Tennessee, working for Terry Productions.
Really?
Yep. He was there for a few years, and I think he migrated over maybe to Holiday on Ice, and then migrated again and just became the Bobby Gordon.
Well, Stan has our first question of the day.
I do. And it comes from Michael in Alabama. And he says, I've heard that there are these new remote control follow spots. Can you tell me a little bit about these, how they work, who makes them, and whether or not I should buy them for my facility? I think we've talked about them before, but maybe, I don't know how new they are. They've sort of been around for a while. They're getting adopted. They're certainly on the touring out with Rock and Roll Tours for sure. And I don't know about all of them. I know about a few of them. I know about the ground control system from PRG. I know about the RoboSpot from Roby. And I know about the Follow-Me system, which comes out of the Netherlands. And then I also know that there are systems that use transponders where you put a device on a performer and a moving light or whatever can follow that person. So basically, they have a camera and they take a picture of the stage, a live shot, and they get calibrated. And then you get a pair of crosshairs on some kind of a screen. And then you move some kind of a device that behaves like a joystick or a pan and tilt device, and it transmits that pan and tilt data to your moving light or whatever you want to use for your follow spots. Pretty effective. My experience is that they work great. If everybody's sort of on the same page, they have one weakness is a little bit in that if a performer suddenly stops and you stop moving your device, there's a little bit of a lag. So there's sort of a coordination between the performer and the operator. I was, wanted to put a lot of these in, as to your question about facility, I've been wanting to put them in high schools, particularly like old high schools where there really isn't a good location for hand-operated follow spots, or you're building a new facility and the cost of building follow spot locations is expensive. And so you could sort of put these control devices anywhere. They could be in the basement, they could be remote, but some of them are quite costly. And so I've been sort of encouraging the manufacturers to find a way to bring the cost down and open up an even larger market for themselves. And And I recently I've had my hands on all of these devices, but they weren't always in a theater per se or a facility. And I recently had my hands on the Follow-Me system, which I really wasn't that impressed with when I first saw it, but I was impressed with it the other day when I got to touch it. It was controlling a couple of Verilight 2600s Neo console, and it was I was shown how, hey, if you're using this channel, it's on the board, and then when you touch this channel and release it, it's on your Follow-Me system. And the movement and the pan and tilt and the control of the iris and intensity was quite lovely, I have to say. And then, of course, you can upgrade it from 2 units to more than 2 units, and you can even use it with a transponder and put a device on a performer and have it follow automatically. So I think they're coming into their own. I think cost is the factor. I was pleasantly surprised to hear that for a unit that runs 2, the cost for the Follow-Me system was about $20,000 when all was said and done, installed and calibrated and good support. So I think they're coming along, and I'm anxious to be able to specify them for facilities that we work on and feel confident in them. That's what I know. How about you guys?
Stan, I have a question. Remote control, how? What is the system actually? Is it a joystick? What is it?
Well, I just described that. So on some of them, it's a joystick-like device. It could be a 3D mouse. It could be a traditional joystick. I think the one on Follow-Me was sort of a dial that panned and tilted. It was very, very ergonomic. Ground control, of course, is like a big surfboard. It's almost like an old school follow spot. You're just moving this board up and down and left and right, and then the motors or the sensors that you have on the device are transmitting the pan and tilt data to the fixture that has been.
And they don't even need to be in the actual theater. They can be in a basement or the comfort of your own home.
Yeah, because what's happening is there's a camera, like either in the fixture, in the robo spot, the fixture is mounted alongside the fixture. In the Follow-Me system, they just mount a camera somewhere out front of house. And I'm not sure how ground control also has a camera mounted somewhere or multiple cameras. And all the operator was looking at is a live picture of the stage with a set of crosshairs, if you can imagine, like a gun sight. And you just see the performer and you keep that crosshairs on them. And then you've got some sliders to change the iris, change the intensity, even change the color. And when you're done using it for a follow spot, you can release it and the fixture goes back to the console and behaves like any other moving light. It's really a pretty great advancement, I think. I just needed to get the price point to a place where I can put them in educational facilities. It's certainly, I think the rock and roll folks have been using them on the big tours for quite some time. Yeah, Steve?
Well, the thing is, it's a whole lot safer. You don't have to put a person up on a truss anymore. Mm-hmm. It's a lot more efficient. I think if no one has seen these in use, I think where I would start is I would look at David Byrne's DVD of his Broadway show, American Utopia, and they're running quite a number of them on the show. Every band member has a tracking device on his body.
They're using Black Trax, they have a transponder on the performers, but you don't have to have that. You can just have a lower level of that and just have the operator moving the pan, moving.
But I think the Black Trax, if you in for a penny, in for a pound, go ahead and take it one step further if you can afford it, and just program the thing into your show. So I mean, you don't have to worry about it ever missing.
Yep.
And it's pretty impressive when one person walks behind somebody else, and the lights don't get lost. They're still tracking their target. If you look at the close-ups of David Byrne, I'm not 100% positive, but I think the two little teeny tiny itty bitty antenna that are on his shoulders are probably the Black Trax system.
Yeah, and Black Trax, I know a little bit about that one. There's two transponders, one on the hip and one on the shoulder. But I wanted to mention on the Follow-Me system, which is a lot cheaper, you can upgrade. So you can start with just the human operator, and then you could bounce up to the transponder when you need it.
So that could be any light, not just a follow spot.
No, it's not using. It's using a moving light.
Right. Anything.
Yeah, any light if they can talk to them. So the idea of the follow spot on a tripod at the back of your auditorium, that's
It's going
gone.
away. That's
You know,
going away.
you
Yeah,
know,
that's
if
going
also
away.
if you think about it from an economic point of view, if you're touring, new arenas are being built, and they're certainly better if you do indeed have your dinosaur dinner. But in the older arenas, you have to kill seats to put follow spots into your front of house. So each follow spot is probably killing 6 to 8 seats. So you got 4 follow spots up there. What? 32 seats?
Or you're
Uh,
building infrastructure into the ceiling for follow spot locations like Madison Square Garden. It's like there's a lot of, that's how we look at it as consultants. We're like, do I really need to build a follow spot nest, and how many of them? And then I got to isolate it from sound if it has a fan, and the operator's got to be there and it needs a glass. And, this is it is a better mousetrap, essentially. A better mousetrap. There's a title for you, David.
Right. So at one point there was like the auto yoke from City Theatrical
Uh-huh. Yep.
that was put on like a Source 4, so it
Yeah.
could control that as well, right?
Well, that was just basically an inexpensive pan tilt moving light. Yeah, but the auto yoke, we've used Apollo's right arm on products which do the same thing. But the problem what they have is they're very weight limited. The auto yoke was very slow. Sometimes if we have a project, we're getting off topic here from the the remote follow spot, but if we have a project that doesn't need a full blown moving light, but we need some refocusing capability and some, we usually do a traditional fixture LED. We put a Roscoe IQ mirror in it and a City Theatrical DMX iris. So you've got a certain amount of pan tilt, you've got a certain different beam size, and you've got your color, and you're not dealing with the motors and the expense of the automated lights. So it just depends on, what you're doing. But I think it's a better mousetrap for sure. And there's competition in the marketplace now, which is good. I think the original RoboSpot was proprietary. You had to use their fixture. I don't know if it still is.
So I have the next question, which is Alice in Boston asks, what is the best way to control addressable LEDs, including LED tape? So that's an interesting question because there are actually lots of ways to do that. DMX control works. You can use a DMX controller with a DMX to LED driver. And there are controllers out there like from Entech, and there are ArtNet to DMX interfaces. There are special softwares like LightJams, QLC Plus, and Matrix, which you'll find at LDI. And all of those things can be used from your console. There's also ArtNet and SACN that can be used to do this, once again with software like Matrix, Resolume, LightJams. And there are pixel controllers, specific pixel controllers out there that do that as well. And MIDI controllers can also be used to have real-time interaction with LED using software such as Ableton Live, Touch Designer, and Resolume, once again. And I think that's all really interesting. Your wireless control can do it. It can be via Bluetooth. It can be time-coded. So I think there are a lot of ways to do it. I think you can build it into your console or have some sort of a specific console with any of those Pixel Mapper, Mad Mapper, Resolume kind of things going on to control all your LEDs.
Alice might be wanting to control LEDs wrapping around the Empire State Building. We have no idea what Alice is up to. So I can't wrap LEDs around the Empire State Building. Stan, did Ellen cover all the bases, you think?
Yeah, but yes, she did, and more. And there's a whole list of others I can think of. We recently did a project where we were controlling LED tape on a building facade, and it's a long story about the getting it done right. But I did want to mention a simple thing that people may not be aware. Even in your run-of-the-mill average ETC console, whether it be, a simple Ion or a really fancy Titan, whatever, all kinds of consoles. I'm sure most consoles have it, but they have a thing where you can actually just lay out your LED devices, whether it be tape or fixtures or whatever, in an array, a wall, or lines of strips, whatever it might be. Quite a sophisticated control capability. And then you can also, I didn't, I only learned this a few years ago. They have a whole menu of static and video content built into the console. And then you can even upload your own and then spread that content across your LED array. So it's really pretty, that stuff is, you know, it's all in there. You just have to kind of discover it.
So you could lay it all out in a wall and use your finger just to draw a picture of the path you want.
Yeah, or let's say you could even make your own video and set in whatever software you do and upload the video and then map that video across the tape or basically whether it's tape or fixtures, it's just a bucket of emitters, right? And how you want to organize those emitters. I think Ellen is also talking about the different control protocols, about how you talk to them, right? Whether it's MIDI or whether it's DMX or whether it's ArtNet or whatever. It could be Dolly for that matter. I mean, all of these protocols sort of do the same thing. And I think we're getting smart in our industry about making things, to use Steve Terry's great word when we interviewed him about the invention of DMX, if you remember, interoperability, right? So interoperability is such a big piece. And I think no matter what you're running, you could, on the control side, you can probably talk to the device on the other side. So I think that's GDTF is taking us there, which is another good subject.
Right.
As well as MVR, my virtual rig, which lets files be interchanged between different visualization software. So we're not siloed. So I think that's just a good attitude that the industry is taking to make more interoperability.
Right. And Steve, when you're ready to wrap the Empire State Building with your long runs of LED strips, you might need signal boosters or repeaters to maintain consistent control signals.
That is a big issue. That's not just control, but voltage drop. That's what happened to me, right, on our facade, because where you can only go so far, you got to find a place to put the driver, and it's got to be in a wall. And we had some color rendering issues, like the end of the tape was dropping off and becoming pink instead of white. Yeah, there's quite a bit to know in that world, and there's a lot of sort of subtle things that you have to be aware of. And I'm still learning, to be honest.
Well, I think Alice could definitely give you a call and you could mentor her through the beginnings of all this.
She might be able to mentor me. This old dinosaur.
Okay, I have the next question, and it comes from Beetle in Rhode Island. And Beetle asks, I do a lot of club work. What do you consider an important element of a good rock and roll concert? Okay, I've got 5. Counting down. Number 5.
Top 10 list, top 5 list.
we live in a social media world. The concert needs to look good on a cell phone so it can be posted and shared. I was rewatching Harry Styles at Coachella last night, and all I saw were little glowing cell phones at slightly above eye level from the audience taping him and looking at their cell phone rather than looking at the stage. I found that fascinating. Number 4. The stage lights need to get the crowd involved. You're all there to have a good time, so you've got to get their attention right up front and hold it through the entire concert. Which brings me to number 3. Resist the urge to show everything the rig can do in the first song. The evening needs to have big moments and small moments you can pull back from and you can build up again. And what that really means is you need to discuss the set list with the band and have a mix of big energy and balance and intimate moments. Think of a good roller coaster ride. The audience has to have time to breathe and has to have time to calm down. Number 2, each song needs a foundation you can play with by use of color and movement. So you've got to build some really interesting palettes that you can get in and out of, and then control those palettes with color and movement separately. And so you have a real mixture of what you're doing in the evening. So doing your homework and getting your show laid out in your console is probably the big first step. Number 1, and people always look at me like I've lost my mind. A successful LD knows the music by heart. If you don't know the music, you're not going to be able to busk, and you're not going to recognize the moments when the band goes off script and adds an impromptu solo. You're just going to get lost. So if you don't know the music, then you're in real trouble. So I think knowing the music and knowing how the band works on stage, that is probably the number one thing you've got to master. Ellen, you've certainly seen a lot in your day, and you've heard a lot, and you've talked a lot to designers. What do you think some of the people you've met would say? What's the big thing you really have to have a good look on stage?
Haze.
Haze is good. I like that. Never can get too much.
Yeah, you can.
Something to light other than the band. You need some scenic elements. You need stage. You need something, even if it's the riser, the drum riser, or something. I think when you look back at the Beatles in Shea Stadium in 67, whatever year that was, there's nothing to light really except the band. And I think that the more interesting the scenic elements are, certainly look at U2 and the Rolling Stones. I think that all that scenery really adds a lot to the visual experience. I think you can't afraid to be bold in your use of color. The Brian Hartley school of just, knock them out of their seats. So I think you can really be bold with your use of movement and color.
I think if you're just kind of getting started, let's say we don't know about Beetle. Maybe Beetle has years of experience, or Beetle, he or she, might be just getting started. I think you got to do your research. And I think a really good place to do research is actually later with Jules Holland. I think that show is phenomenal. You'll see 5 bands every night. Now, of course, they're lighting for television, but you still get the sense of background, foreground, how they use side lights, how they use footlights, how they isolate, how they do solos. You start looking at the work on that show, and you see some of the best LEDs on the planet lighting that thing. So I would look at the work, the show later with Jules Holland.
You can also go on YouTube and call up a lot of stuff from, David Bowie's tours to the Rolling Stones to all kinds of stuff. And a lot of designers have reels on their websites where you can look at their work also. And I think that's a really good learning tool.
It's interesting, too, how these designers have a bit of a signature to what they do. I was looking at some of the work from the late 70s of Jethro Tull. I think it was Locomotive Breath. And it was a purple-based backlight. Okay, good, bad, doesn't really matter, but it was purple-based. Everything was kind of purple-based for that song, and it looked pretty good. I was looking at the work 20 years later at, Albert Hall, and the song still had a purple base to it. It was more sophisticated. The designer had learned and changed and evolved, but his or her idea of that kind of purple base of that song was still there. And it was much, much clearer with experience.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And I also think, what's interesting is like size matters. I mean, these shows that are going out now, some of them have 18, 25, 35 trucks of stuff they're carrying with them. From the scenic elements to the lighting to the everything else they're taking on the road. It's huge. And I think that that's what concert goers have come to expect.
You can go the other way too. I think they're either French or they're German based. I'm not sure. It's the Tiger Lilies. And the Tiger Lilies is a bit of a cabaret rock and roll act. Really interesting. They get a lot of mileage out of half a dozen lights. They're very surgical in what they do. I mean, they design the hell out of their stuff. So it doesn't, you can start with the Tiger Lilies when you start looking at club work.
Well, yeah, and I think there's a difference between club work and, stadium tours.
I would just add this concept. I think everything both of you said is absolutely on point, but I'm just going to channel one of my favorite sort of intellectuals about is this phenomenon called the peak end state phenomenon. So you've got to get their attention, like Steve said at the beginning. Then you've got to determine what the peak of the experience is, right? Because that's what people are going to have a real emotional remembrance of. And then the end state. As we all know, the last thing that you experience is also very, very important. So I think if you think across that arc, opening, peak experience, and then the end state, is a meaningful way to think about structure for a concert. Well, guess what? You are listening to Light Talk, and today we're sponsored by...
It's a public service announcement from No More 10 out of 12s and Artistic Finance. Congratulations, you did it. It's been a banner year. Multiple projects, check. Royalties rolling in from that Broadway show, check. And don't forget the sweet returns from those investments you've been bragging about. Check, check, check. You are like a walking financial newsletter. Thanks, Artistic Finance. But of course, as we enter the true season of giving, that it's better to give than receive season. Hold it, pork chop. I'm not talking about December 25th. I'm talking about tax day, April 15th. And I want to welcome you to Bracket Land, a.k.a. the IRS. Step right up, thrill seekers. Buckle up for a tax coaster, a ride that will make you question your life choices and your accountant's questionable taste in theme parks. Hold tight, because this isn't your average amusement park. This is Bracket Land, and you're in the front seat of the tax system's most exciting ride. Let's go. The 10% bracket, or as I call it, the candy shop level. You're starting off easy, nothing too wild. The first $11,000 is like a sugar rush at the cotton candy stand. Sweet, innocent, and barely a bump in the road. The 10% tax is a soft warm-up, like, when you sit on a roller coaster and think, I got this. Then bam, the ride starts, you hit the first bump, and welcome to the 12% bracket, a.k.a. the mild tilt. Now you've hit the next level. This is the part of the ride where the incline starts to steepen a little. But you're still cruising. Your income between $11,000 and $44,000 gets taxed at 12%. It's like a first little dip where you feel the small rush. You're still fine, but you know the ride's coming. Get ready for the 22% bracket, deluxe roller coaster. Okay, now you're getting into the good stuff. Between $45,000 and $95,000, you're paying 22%. This is where the ride starts to feel real. The coaster is picking up speed, and suddenly you can't even pretend you're not nervous. It's like the moment when you feel the harness loosen, yourself slipping in the seat, and you realize, wait, why am I holding my breath? The track is curving, the speed's picking up, and the roller coaster's about to go full I'm too old for this mode as you enter the 24% bracket, the big drop. Hold on tight. This is where things go from fun to, oh my God, what did I get myself into? For incomes between $96,000 and $182,000, you're looking at 24% tax. This is the big drop, the one that makes you feel like you're falling through the floor. Your stomach is in your throat, and you're praying you don't lose your lunch. You're in the big leads now, and the admission price is steeper than you thought. And just when you think it's over, boom, it's time for the 32% bracket, surprise surcharge edition. Wait, what's that? An unexpected twist? How much? Between $183K and $230K. You're getting hit with a 32% tax. It's like buying a $12 bottle of water at the theme park. You want to scream, but all you can mutter is, I paid how much for this? Now you're officially in the we'll see you at the gift shop part of the ride. Hope you brought your American Express, and the next climb is coming up fast. Look out for the 35% bracket, the inverted corkscrew. Things are getting real. This is the point where you're in the 35% tax bracket, making between $231K and $580K. This is the I don't know why I did this part of the ride. Maybe you should have stayed on the kiddie ride. Too late now. There's no time for regrets. You are definitely about to throw up now. But wait, the 37% tax bracket is lurking like that creepy clown who tries to sell you a balloon as you leave the park. Here we are, folks, the grand finale, the highest part of the ride. You're making over $580K, baby. You are in the 37% bracket, the tax free fall. This is the part of the ride where you're plummeting down the track at terminal velocity. Your stomach is doing somersaults and you're screaming, but no sound is coming out. You're just holding on for dear life. And just like that, the ride slows down and you can breathe again. You cross the finish line, slightly disoriented, a little nauseous, and legs weak. Congratulations, you survived Tax Coaster 2024. And guess what? You're already signed up for next year because this is the ride that never ends. This has been a public service announcement from No More 10 out of 12s and Artistic Finance.
And now, back to Let Pup.
Well, the sounds of those lovable hipster monkeys bouncing around the coffee shop riding those little iguanas means it's time for Let's Talk About. And today, let's talk about the truth about taxes.
Yeah, all that stuff you just said. You know what? I just had mine done, and I owe a lot of taxes. So I had to think about that. I think I'm lucky, because if I wasn't making a lot of money, I wouldn't owe a lot of taxes. And so it's sort of part of comes with the deal. And I want good services for those taxes. But I just want to make clear that when Steve laid out those brackets, it doesn't mean, for those who might be mistaken and think, oh, if I make $100,000 a year, I'm going to be in the 24% bracket, and therefore 24% of my 100,000 is going to the IRS. That would be a flat tax. Now, once upon a time, there was a guy, Ellen and Steve would remember his name, Steve Forbes, who was promoting a flat tax. Now, if you just think about this for a minute, it sounds really good. Everybody pays the same percentage of tax on their income. Does that sound fair? Well, it isn't fair. Because right now, even if you make $100,000, let's go back to Steve's brackets. The first $11,925 are taxed at 10%. As soon as you get to $11,926, up to $48,475, you pay 12%. So each bucket of money pays a different rate. It's called the progressive tax system. So if you make less, you pay less. And as you're more successful and you make more, you pay more. So most people have money in several of those brackets, right? And you only pay the percentage of those specific dollars in that bracket at that rate. So you have to sort of understand that progressive taxation tries to level the playing field, right? And I think that's really a really important feature that people understand. And that's why Steve Ford's idea of a flat tax doesn't work. Because what happens is the people at the lower end of the spectrum or the income scale have less purchasing power of the taxation scale. And purchasing power is what it's all about.
The problem with the flat tax is, what rate do we charge? So if you're making $10,000 and we're charging 10%, okay, let's say that's great. But what if you're making $1 million and we're still charging that same 10%? There's a big disparity between what you're paying.
That's right. And Steve's point is a good illustration. For somebody making $10,000, it's $1,000 out of their pocket. They go from $10,000 to $9,000. But if you're a millionaire and you go from $1 million to $900,000, that $900,000 is not impacting your ability to live comfortably. But when you take that person who's making 10 and you reduce them by 10%, the impact is greater on somebody at the lower end.
We're talking to you, graduate students living on an assistantship. I mean,
right.
You understand this.
Yeah, but taxes are such a political hot potato at the moment.
They always will be.
Well, I mean, at one time, after the Second World War, I think, we're trying to rebuild the country, and this highest tax bracket was, I believe, 95%.
Only those dollars at that level didn't affect somebody in the middle class at all. But also people misconstrue taxes and federal withholding. So everybody pays. If you work on a salary, like most of us did, what's coming out of your check is your Medicare payment, which you're going to get back later if you live long enough in Medicare coverage, your Social Security contribution, which you're going to get back later if you're lucky enough, and your federal withholding, right, which is a proportion of your income to pay for, the military and the highways and all those things, right?
There's one other thing that we really didn't mention, which is that if you are freelance or an independent contractor or have your own S corporation, perhaps, there isn't anyone to take taxes out of your paycheck. So you have to pay what's called estimated quarterly taxes. It's a 1040 form. My accountant works it out for me. If I happen to have overpaid in 1 year, sometimes we skip the first of the 4 payments and then the other 3 are paid throughout the year so that you paid enough. I prefer to pay over and not be penalized for paying under. And you also have to pay the 4 quarterly estimates on exactly the same time. There are dates for which they are due. I believe it's like September 15th, January 15th, April 15th, June 15th, and you can be penalized if you don't pay on time. And then, of course, your regular tax return is done on April 15th, like people who are employees. So those on 1099 income or something other than a straight paycheck really have to look into the estimated tax quarterlies. That's one thing that we really have to mention here.
Well, I guess the takeaway here, why a lighting podcast is talking about this, is that if you are, a student who's about to graduate and about to start your own self-business as a lighting designer, the financial side of all this, whether it's healthcare or taxes or retirement, this is really important.
It is.
So it's important. I wish someone had taken me when I was 17 or 18 and said, here, sit down and listen to this person. Let me be clear, not us, a professional, an accountant to talk you through it. Or, that would have changed everything in my life had I known this. So, yes, there's plenty of tax programs you can get that you can do your own taxes. It might be worth your time, maybe that first time out of the gate, to go to a accountant to start understanding how the world of taxes actually works and what is and is not deductible above that $15,000 level.
Right. And speaking of artistic finance, which is, of course, another podcast in this industry, if you go to their website and listen to some of those episodes, they really get into all of this stuff with designers. And it's
Including
interesting to
us.
hear. Yeah. It's interesting to hear some of the younger designers talking about, that they've already realized that they have to start saving for retirement. And I will say, no matter how young you are, it's probably already too late. So get going.
And I saw an interesting thing on that. It's too late for us, but this person was laying out just the math of it. When you have a child, the day the child is born, set aside $1,000, and then it's something goofy like $50 a month, and then every birthday thereafter $500. So you're in for $1,000, then you're in for what? $300?
$500 a year.
$500 a year. And by the time that child is, about 20, you'll have roughly 37,000 set aside for them. And the magic of compounding interest, by the time that child gets to 65,
they're done.
In a normal world, that amount of money invested will turn into about $4 million. It was just amazing, the math of having time on your side. So it doesn't take much. Even if you're just in college now, it doesn't take much to set aside $50 a month.
Right. Well, it's actually like $1,000 a year if you include like the $50 a month plus the birthday money.
Let me quote Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner. It is easy to avoid stupidity and hard to find brilliance. So avoid stupidity when you got time on your side, and do it now. Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website at lighttalk.org, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast.
But if you do decide to litigate, the Snoot Group with the legal team of Watson, Leitner, and Beam will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted unless the taxes get to us first.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers.
And Sister.
Coming to you from Gainesville, St. Bart's, and the Lone Star State.
And be sure to join us next week when we talk about more lighting shenanigans and serve you more of our casserole of nonsense.
Light talking folks, broadcasting that questionable lumen knowledge, tax knowledge, and humor around the world.
We'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Bye-bye.
Bye.